Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bazil, and welcome to, I'm not sure what to call the series yet, but hey, let's just roll with it. I'm going to be interviewing, I think you know him. You've heard of him. He's around the internet every once in a while. Mr. SidAlpha, how are you doing today?
I'm doing quite well. Yes, I am poking around on the internet, generally trying to make a nuisance of myself whenever possible.
I mean, it's not hard. It's the internet, so.
This is very true.
Now, you have a YouTube channel where you do first impressions and just kind of gaming news. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, generally video game news, reviews, first impressions, things of that nature. It started off very much as actually, it started off with a drunken decision to finally just go for it.
That's awesome.
So basically, a lot of people can thank my channel to a bottle of Jameson.
Oh, you know what? You should write them and be like, you should totally sponsor my YouTube channel because you're the reason I'm here.
Well, I don't think they like me too much because I stopped drinking after the whole digital homicide debacle. I decided that was an extremely bad idea to keep continuing on that route.
Yeah. Speaking of digital homicide, great segue. You're a professional. I like that. I want to talk about just a little bit about of just kind of that whole situation. And I mean, it not only affected people like Jim Sterling, people like yourself, every other small YouTube channel that has gotten a copyright strike by just an indie developer or someone who has a stick up their ass. I mean, obviously it was stressful for you, but what was the best kind of advice that you can give someone to kind of like how can we deal with that and not go crazy?
Well, the most important thing to remember if you're a YouTuber and you happen to get a copyright strike like that, where it comes from a shady indie dev or something like that, normally all they're attempting to do is trying to get you to shut up for a while. And so the best thing you can do to help your channel out is to not do that. Make as loud of a noise as you can. Scream at other YouTubers, scream on social media. Make sure people are aware that it's happening because this is the exact opposite thing that they are attempting to accomplish. A lot of them can't grasp that. They don't understand what the Streisand effect is. And I didn't even fully grasp it either until Jim Sterling actually, he gave a shout out to my channel, and then I watched my channel literally quadruple in size over the course of 8 hours.
I'm sure. Now, that was kind of my next question. Did you like tweet at him or anything? Like, do you know how he kind of found out about your situation? How did that progress?
I don't know if he ever actually saw it or not, but a lot of my viewers had said, start reaching out to the larger channels. And so I decided, well, it never hurts to ask. It never hurts to bring it up. So I reached out to Jim Sterling, Total Biscuit, Philip DeFranco, Review Tech USA, even Rageaholic, and a few others like that. Jim Sterling was, of course, the largest proponent to come rushing to someone's aid when something like that was going on. I think he took a liking to me somehow.
I mean, to be fair, you are very likable. I think you're kind of calm and like very.
I don't understand it though because I wasn't really, and
it's your
the
voice,
video
though.
that I had about the whole Dentola Studios issue.
Right.
I came across sounding extremely calm, extremely collected, but the fact of the matter was I was so unbelievably angry that I was physically shaking.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
I was absolutely mindlessly enraged to the point where before I recorded that video, I was pacing back and forth for upwards of an hour, just ranting vocally to open air.
Wow. I mean,
And then I finally decided I may as well just sit down and record this.
right, right.
And so I did. And that entire video was actually one of those few large discussion pieces that was completely and utterly unscripted.
Speaking of like scripted and that kind of stuff, a lot of your videos that had to deal with these situations that you've been through and other ones that you've talked about are those a lot of you just kind of sitting down doing research, typing like cliff notes, or do you actually have a script that you follow?
It varies, actually. It depends if I'm just not feeling the flow. if my brain just isn't engaging and I'm not in that sort of groove, then I will actually sit down and type something out. Like I will script it out fully from end to end, and then it's basically just a dramatic reading at that point. But a lot of the time, the vast majority of the time, it is a series of cliff notes and talking points that I just keep in front of my face to keep me on topic and keep going. Because if you go back to my older videos, you would hear me comment on that. If I don't have those in front of me, I start to circle back and I start to repeat points again. And it gets really terrible. My brain, I have extreme ADHD when it comes to stuff like that. And having something in front of me, it just really helps to prevent that. That was actually, people would comment and complain about that. It's like, you realize you covered the same point 5 times, right?
that is honestly my problem. So if I ever do a video like that, like a guide or something on a game, I have to write it down, or I'm just like, okay, so let's mention this 97 times before I actually get to the point. And it's a good lesson to learn for all content creators, is keep your content under 15 minutes, don't repeat yourself, and just go straight to the point and provide a bunch of facts and stuff, and generally your videos will do well.
Yeah, which, it's a learning experience, really. I think we all have to learn that at some point or another and come to find our own way of doing things. That's part of the why, I've only been doing this for 2 years, but you go back and look at my videos from even a year ago, and I just feel so awful having produced content that was that bad. And at that time, people were saying, wow, your content is way more professional than a channel your size. I'm like, well, now it just feels amateurish,
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think if anyone can go back and look at their old videos or some of their first videos that they've done, you're just kind of like, oh, wow, that probably should be deleted and never put on the internet again.
Oh, I've thought about that about countless videos, but I've never actually fully deleted a video off my channel I've only done it twice.
Yeah,
maybe it was three times total, and there was always an explanation video or something like that as to why that video isn't there anymore.
Now,
but I'm a big fan of always owning up to your mistakes, always making sure you remember what you've done in the past.
Right.
That way you can avoid making mistakes like that in the future.
Gosh, I wish game developers had that same freaking philosophy.
I know.
Gosh, damn it.
Everything would be so much better.
Oh, it would. I mean, I missed the 90s, damn it. So kind of speaking of game developers and just kind of going off of that, the pre-order culture and the DLC culture that we have today just it's not horrible, but it's not where it should be either. I haven't pre-ordered a game in probably 5 years now, and I usually refuse to buy DLC unless it's like, hey, Mass Effect 3, buy the DLC because this is part of the actual story. So, in terms of all that, like, what is your biggest complaint for pre-orders and DLC at this current date and time?
The fact that it's mostly unnecessary. There are a lot of reasons why that people will come up with as to why they pre-order. Some of them have actually said, well, sometimes I pre-order a game right then when I have the money because I don't know if I'll have the money at launch. And that's a perfectly valid reason to pre-order a game. And you'll never find me argue against something like that, something that is, that's legitimate. Games are expensive. It is an extremely expensive hobby to have, and I make no qualms over the fact that, not everyone can afford to buy the latest AAA shiny every single time it comes out when it comes out.
Right.
But the difficulty that I have, the largest problem that I have with like pre-orders and season passes and things like that is the reasoning behind them, and the reasoning that they make use of, and the marketing schemes behind them to keep people ordering those games before they come out, before reviews are even seen. And that is very much because they want you to buy the game sight unseen. They don't want you to make an informed decision. They don't want you to be steered away from their game because it might be bad, or it might be a style of game that you don't like, or there might be a mechanic or a plot concept that you don't enjoy. And that's the pre-order aspect of that, is very much for them to avoid that with you, to keep you locked into that game. Plus, once you have that pre-order, once you buy into the game, then there is that a lot of people have heard the term the sunk cost fallacy, where, once you invest money, a certain amount of money and time in something, you get that very much in for a penny, in for a pound concept.
Right.
And that's where they bring in the ideas of the season passes and things like that. And the yearly iteration games like the Battlefields and the Call of Duties are the most horrendous examples of that, where they do have multiple games companies working around the clock to be able to produce on an alternating scheme a new Call of Duty or a new Battlefield game every year.
Yeah, it's a shame too, because those games, I used to play a lot of those. Like I was really into Call of Duty, Battlefield, and after a while they're just like, okay, it's the same thing over and over. You're just giving us less and less game for. Here's the season pass, which broke up the multiplayer. Here's all the other stuff. Yeah,
the amount of content the amount of actual content you get with those games is by far and away the least available for the vast majority of AAA games, and they end up costing the most money once you factor in the season passes and everything like that.
Yeah, Battlefield 4, someone did the math. It was like a $240 game total. And it's just like,
absolutely.
What the hell? Like, why? I mean, obviously money.
Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah.
I mean, right.
But the thing is, they do it because they know they can. They know they can get away with it. They know people will continue to pay it. That's why they feel they can get away with things like that. The only time that, I've said in a few recent videos, picture a decade ago or 20 years ago, if someone were to come to you with a game that released in a functional state the way the Battlefield 4 did, and then attempt to sell you a season pass that costs as much, if not more, than the base game itself, you never would have sold a single copy.
No, not
you would have
even
been laughed
close.
out of the market.
Yeah.
And now it's commonplace. And that's what they've done over the course of the past 15 years is they've slowly eased into this concept and slowly jack things up, offering less for more.
And part of me completely understands that. From a business side, you got to keep your shareholders happy. You got to keep the company happy. I understand that from a business standpoint. It makes sense. But what doesn't make sense, to me at least, just growing up in the 80s and 90s and now the 2000s, is watching gamers fall into the same trap over and over and over again with games like just Battlefield, Battlefront, Mass Effect 3, Evolve, and a bunch of other just AAA titles, even single play AAA titles, or just any titles in general that has season passes and DLC, and then they turn around and complain that the game sucks or it's not finished or there's bugs or a bunch of other stuff. So,
well, the original idea behind, because I'm actually going to argue a little bit with you on the Mass Effect 3 one. The reason behind the original idea around the DLC concept was the digital evolution of the expansion pack. Because it used to be, once upon a time, there was no digital distribution, so they would come out with full expansion packs that were sometimes, they would offer 4 hours worth of gameplay, or sometimes they would be as big as the base game themselves and would cost a fraction of that game. And then with digital distribution, DLC became digitalized as well, and that's where we come in with those extra single player missions and things like that, bonus content to help flesh out the game after its initial release. And I have nothing against DLC or anything like that. I do have a problem with day one DLC. But as a whole, I don't see a problem with DLC as long as it's meaningful value for the price.
Right. Now,
which that is, that can sometimes be fairly subjective, but there's a lot of rule of thumb that people generally take as an accepted standard. Like a lot of people use the 1 hour rule, like a buck an hour worth of gameplay is what they consider to be worthwhile content. And with DLC, traditionally, it's a 4 hour gameplay. It's $10 is not a bad price for that.
Right. I mean, in terms of just why gamers still buy it and then are always surprised that the game is unfinished or there's a ton of bugs or whatnot. Why do you think that us as gamers keep falling into that trap?
Well, because it's a slow progression. It's a very slow progression. It's like bringing bringing water to boil with a frog in it.
Right.
Bringing a boil too quickly, the frog will jump out. But you do it slow enough, and the frog will just sit there and roast alive. And very much the same thing the AAA industry has done with gamers over the years, and they've done this slowly, and we've seen inroads and pushes and things like that, like the Deus Ex uh, augment your pre-order
Oh
crap
yeah.
that they tried to pull. That was taking things to the extreme. They rushed it too hard, and they realized, oh, this is a really bad idea. But give it another 10 years, and that could very well be an accepted practice, assuming they move slowly enough.
Right. I mean, in terms of that, why do we still buy it now? Like, obviously, it's been, as you said, given to us over the years slowly and taking things out piece by piece. But I guess just common sense for me says, okay, well, they're going to try and do this every time now. We need to stop buying things with pre-orders and buying things on day one, and doing this kind of stuff to give companies the kind of slap in the face that they need. It's like, hey, we're not going to put up with this crap anymore. I mean, even Ubisoft now is starting to go, no more review codes are going to be sent for X platform until it's released, or stuff like that. So it's just like, why are gamers still buying this stuff in terms of pre-orders and season passes? Obviously, because they want all the content, but do you think there's some sort of weird inlying other reason, or is it just they just want to play the game? They just kind of not going to put in the effort to try and combat the companies?
Well, gaming culture has evolved to a point now where it's become very much the idea of I want it now.
Yeah.
It's the Veruca Salt syndrome. And, it's one of those things where no matter how much you hate the business practice, you still want the end product. And that's where these companies know they have us, for the vast majority of us, is they know that for as many people out there that complain about the game, there's going to be 2 or 3 times as many that just don't care and just want their new shiny and want to be able to play with their new shiny. And they don't deal with all this extra crap that comes along with it. It's only actually a vocal minority that seems to have a severe issue with this sort of thing.
And that's the problem, at least for me. Like, that just worries me. But again, I think it's just this generation of, they don't really care as long as they get stuff, and they'll just keep quiet about it. I mean, okay, so obviously we're older, and we're used to things being a little bit more, I don't want to say fair when we purchase things, but at least for me, when I buy something, I heavily weigh the value in terms of, okay, this is a $60 title. Am I going to actually get enjoyment out of this? Am I going to buy this and be happy with my purchase? And to be fair, the Steam refund policy stuff has saved me so much money. It's unreal. I don't know if you take advantage of that or not when trying new games or buying new games.
I have in the past. I think the last time I actually took advantage of the Steam refund policy was with Batman Arkham Knight.
Oh, you're one of the poor guys that bought that one.
Yeah,
Ooh.
and I actually my issues with the game were to a far lesser extent than most other people, because it turned out a lot of the reason behind that was because of the mechanical hard drives, the physical spinners out there that a lot of people still use. Mm-hmm. It had a severe issue with the game, whereas those that were on more modern SSDs, they still had problems, but not nearly to the same extent. And I was a fairly early adopter for SSDs once they got into the once they became affordable for the 500 gigabyte
reasonable price.
I think my 500 gigabyte SSD I paid $270 for, so I call that reasonable.
I mean, that's not bad when you think about it.
It's
at least
not
for an
great,
SSD, but yeah, I mean,
I have my M2 that I paid significantly less amount of money for, that is 4 times faster.
Right. I mean, I guess I just want to try and understand why people still buy the same stuff over and over. Like, every year, everyone just buys Call of Duty and Battlefield. Like, they just buy it.
Because because they just don't care. They like what they like, and they
Right.
buy what they like, and everything else be damned.
So
That's basically it.
so do you think that gaming as a whole is going to go downhill because of just kind of the culture that we've adopted?
Oh, it already has.
Okay.
It already has, absolutely. I mean, you look at, especially with the AAA industry, actually the indie development industry, that's where they have begun to be able to shine because of the excesses of the AAA industry.
Right.
So I think what we'll see is a slow, cyclical aggregate of smaller indie developers becoming larger. And, Bethesda would be a prime example of this, where way back when they were a very small development team, very small group of people that churned out some fantastic games
Mhm.
that people really loved. And then as they grew larger, they drifted away from that consumer awareness and that willingness to work side by side with their customers. And now they're basically entirely separated from that, and they are just another AAA publishing company
Yeah.
and development company at that point. And then we have these smaller indie devs, these 3 to 5 man teams that show some real spark of talent that come out with an amazing product, and then they start growing larger as well. And we'll see that happen time and again. It's a corporate disassociation.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because it's almost like we're like reaching to the point of no return. Everything's going to just fall apart, at least for the AAA like developers and just like the big companies. And will regress back to where gaming used to be, which was all these small companies producing a bunch of really good stuff like Rare and that kind of stuff back in the 90s. So I almost wonder if, not to use like a weird analogy, but it's almost like the tech bubble or the housing bubble, where it just kind of slowly gets to this one point of just everything seems okay, and then it'll just completely crash, and the companies that actually care about their communities and care about the actual gamers will rise up again, and it'll just kind of take another 15 years for those companies to, I guess, fall in their own trap the AAA's does. I mean, I almost feel like that's the kind of pattern we're on now. And
Well, it'll reach a point if the AAA industry doesn't start curbing their own excesses, then it definitely will reach that point. Mostly not out of any sort of customer base becoming fed up with the AAA industry. It'll be more from it'll originate more from the concept that AAA games are expensive, and they're becoming more expensive because they're always trying to make them shinier and prettier, and that costs a psychotic amount of money. And eventually, if they keep going like that, then they will hit a point where they have to spend more money than they can bring in.
right. And if my memory recalls, I think the new Mass Effect game was like $55 million or something stupid, just like some astronomical amount of money for
Well,
a,
that's,
a title.
that sounds like a fantastic amount of money, but that's actually fairly common for a AAA game these days to be in the, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 million.
Which is nuts when you think about it.
Yeah. But they're still able to make money at that
Right.
point.
Right.
And then you have you look at phenomenal amounts of money. Look at Star Citizen. They're crowdfunded for over
God,
$125 million right now. That's crowdfunding.
Yeah, that game will never come out.
No,
I want it
have,
to so bad. I really do, but I'm just like, that game's never getting released.
probably the largest amount of subscribers I have before my channel exploded the way it did were people that followed me because of my Star Citizen content.
Really?
And that was because I tried to deliver as fair of an opinion based on the game as I could, but their forums and everything grew to be so just unimaginably toxic.
Oh, I cannot imagine the amount of fanboyism over there is just probably insane.
Oh, it's insane. It's reached insane levels. It's basically the Star Citizen forums themselves. That is basically the cult of Cloud Imperium.
Oh gosh, that's
You
terrifying.
don't dare invade that and say anything wrong. They're still. That's not to say that they're all like that though.
Right,
But
obviously, yeah.
there is a definite majority of people that will gnash their teeth and stomp their feet as loudly as possible for as long as possible every single time someone naysays anything about the game or the company or Chris Roberts or anything.
See,
And it's a real shame
that's
because
terrifying.
I am a huge fan of Chris Roberts. I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan. Some of my absolute favorite games of the 90s were Wing Commander.
I was always terrible at
Oh
those
my God, I
games.
was addicted to those games.
They were awesome, but man, was I terrible at those games.
Oh, I was good. I was very good.
Not me. I always stuck to first-person shooters. that was
No,
my
I was
thing.
always
So.
I've always been a fan of the simulator style game like the Wing Commanders and MechWarrior and things like that. And I was fantastic at those games too.
Have you?
Not so much anymore because I'm older and people slow down as they get older. But it happens.
Preach it, brother. Speaking of kind of hypes and that kind of stuff, have you ever been so overhyped for a game that when it releases, you're just like, wow, that was the most disappointing thing I've ever experienced?
Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh, see, really?
Yes, are you Mass Effect? Again, huge fan of BioWare. My favorite games of all time, laying aside Wing Commander and MechWarrior, were Baldur's Gate, Baldur's Gate 2, the Icewind Dale trilogy, Neverwinter Nights,
Good
all
games,
of those.
yeah.
Dragon Age series and the Mass Effect series. And so I was thrilled that a new Mass Effect game was coming out. I didn't listen to any of the hype or the anti-hype. I was just sitting there just rocking back and forth in my chair just going, Mass Effect. To the point where I'm going to review this game. I'm going to play it end to end, and then I'm going to do a review on this game. I took a week off of work.
Oh, that's
A week off of work to play that game. And I finally managed to finish it. I started off, I paid in to get the 10 hours of playtime before the game launched that Friday. And so I started playing through that, and I was like, all right, okay, I can see what they're going here for, with it. And, it's not bad. It doesn't suck, but we'll see if it opens up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I waited for Tuesday night, and then every waking moment I was playing Mass Effect. And I finally managed to finish it around 9 p.m. the following Sunday.
Oh my gosh, dude. That's nuts.
68 hours of gameplay.
Wow.
And probably 18 hours of that was watching transition scenes.
That's disappointing.
And by the end of it, all I could say was, thank God it's over.
Oh, no. No. Now,
it was a good game. It was a good game. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I don't think it's a bad game at all. It's not a fantastic game, but it's not a bad game. But by the end of it, when you spend an entire week of just doing nothing but playing one game, and that's all you're doing, you get sick of it pretty quick.
Yeah, I did that with Mass Effect 2 because I was unemployed at the time when that game came out. I was like, cool, I'll just apply for jobs and play this game. And
I was actually I was unemployed when the first Mass Effect came out.
Oh yeah.
And so I played that. It basically took me about a week, but that was my all day every day.
Yeah. I'm a completionist, so I have to 100% anything I play. That's why a lot of the times I hate DLC and like day one pre-order crap, because if I can't get it, then it's like, well, then I have no other way of doing it unless I pay the $400 for the actual game. So I'm not going to even bother playing it. Now, kind of going along with the whole Mass Effect Andromeda, was the writing as bad as they say? Because I haven't actually played it. Oh, okay.
It was definitely a different writing team. The pacing was vastly different. Now, a lot of the things you have to remember, though, a lot of people are looking back on the original Mass Effect trilogy as a trilogy, as a whole.
Right.
And that's not something you can do as by way of comparison, because they had 3 games to develop all those characters.
Right. And
Andromeda
is a complete reset, right?
Yeah, Garrus was one of your best friends who, has been with you through thick and thin, but the first game, he was a disgruntled beat cop.
That's right, he was.
And he was a very unoriginal character stereotype to begin with, as were a lot of them. I mean, Tali was the orphan girl, and Liara was the was the alien Tasty. You know, the bookish hot girl that you're
Right.
supposed to get with. It's
Personally,
basically.
personally,
I know it sounds a little crass, but that's basically how it is. You
yeah. I
know.
mean, it is weird to compare Mass Effect 1 to not just the second one, but the third one, and then going to Andromeda. Like I've read a lot of reviews, I've seen a lot of Let's Plays, I've seen a lot of just opinions on the game, and like none of them have ever made me want to go, I should buy Mass Effect Andromeda, because I'm just like, all of this seems awful. Like, one thing that really got me with the Mass Effect series was the writing was really, really good. Like, it made you feel for the characters.
Oh, absolutely.
It really just like
when
drug
Morden
you.
died,
Yeah,
I
oh
actually
gosh.
had tears.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually had tears. This, you know, I'm a large, semi-muscular, gruff guy that people are actually scared of, and I was sitting there going, "Oh, Morden."
That's okay. I cried at the drop of the hat, so you're fine. There's nothing wrong with crying, but I mean, it's just it's so weird to have video games that kind of are able to kind of tug at those emotions and tug at that. And I feel that a lot of games these days either miss out on it because of they have to split up the game for more content, or they have to add some pre-order bullshit into it because it's like, hey, let's add this, but you have to pre-order the day one DLC in order to get this. An example again is the Mass Effect and the Proteus people, or whatever they were called. Like,
Yeah,
that
Protheus.
pissed me off. Like, that legitimately, I was like, what? Like, that's stupid.
Wow, so you're carving out a character who is actually integral to the campaign,
Yeah.
and then selling it off to us as day one DLC for $10. Kiss my lily white. No, I was so angry about that. It was unbelievable. But yeah, you can. You're absolutely right. The video games as a medium have so much potential for things
They
like
do.
that. And back to the Mass Effect Andromeda point and the comparison, it's a very much a false equivalency too, because even your main characters are different, their backgrounds are different, and what they're trying to accomplish is entirely different. You had Shepard, who, and yes, for those who are probably wondering, I played FemShep because
Yes.
she is by far and away the superior voice actor.
Me too. Amen to that.
But very much a military background. Any situation where this is do or die, fighting for the fate of anyone and everyone and everything.
Yeah, that's
Whereas the Ryder character is very different. No military background there whatsoever.
She seemed really dry and bland.
She was very dry and bland. And one thing that actually bothered me was she whinged on constantly throughout the entire game about her father dying. And it's like, he died in the first 20 minutes. Get the fuck over it. You got it's about the pacing, though. If you're going to kill someone off, like take Morden, for example.
Right.
It is a perfect example. Give the player a reason to care about this character.
Yeah.
And then it will have meaningful impact. But if you kill someone off at the very beginning and then make references to them that you should feel bad or guilty that this person is dead, you're not going to give a damn.
Right.
At all.
Yeah. The last game that really kind of tugged at me emotionally was Ori and the Blind Forest. I don't know if you've ever played that one.
I actually never have. I think I own it.
You need to. It's probably...
I own Undertale too, and I still haven't played that.
I could not enjoy that game to save my life. I tried. I really did. I really did. I couldn't get past the graphics.
My daughter's addicted to it.
And that's awesome because kids these days, they grow up with so full disclosure, I have 2 kids, 2 boys, 3 and 1, and I'm so excited to introduce them to games like Mario and Minecraft and Pikmin and Wave Race and all these games that I grew up as a kid just enjoying. And it's so awesome to be able to watch your kids grow up and enjoy things that you enjoy, but at the same time they get this weird emotional connection out of. And I mean, especially as a gaming parent, I think that's really important to always keep your kids kind of indoctrinated into that culture, because gaming, like like movies and books, is a powerful tool to teach them life lessons, to teach them skills of thinking and problem solving. So I think a lot of people still view video games as like this weird nerdy thing that you do in your mother's basement. Obviously not so much now, but it's still like looked upon like, why do you play these things? It's like, why do you read a book and watch a movie? Like, there's no bloody difference anymore. So
Yeah, there's really not. I
yeah,
mean, it's actually video games are far superior in that aspect in a lot of different ways.
yeah,
Mainly because of that aspect of player agency and player choice, to where you do get to customize your experience as you go through these stories. That gives you a real personal investment in these stories and these characters that you don't get from movies and books.
well, and
Because you are the one making those decisions. You are the one that is deciding whether Morden lives or dies. You are the
right.
one that decides whether the uh, the the Geth flotilla are annihilated or not. That's all you,
Yeah.
and you get to see the outcome of those decisions, and you get to see those characters deal with those decisions that you made.
Well,
It's not something you get in
yeah.
any other medium.
It's also there's a lot like sexual explicit crap there, and just a lot less like, it seems like movies these days have to have like just a bunch of just unnecessary stuff, even in kids movies, and it's just like, why? Like, just tell me the story without the naked crap, and just tell me the story, and that's why I've always
Well,
enjoyed video games. I mean, yes,
I like the naked
I
crap.
mean, yeah, okay, yeah, boobs are nice. So, like, I'm not gonna lie, but like, you're sitting there with your kid, and it's like, oh, there's a naked chick. You're only 8. Let's not watch that.
Yeah, that not so much. No.
I mean, in video games, they have to have that rating. That they have to have something that is appropriate for that age, and you can buy it without fear of, oh, okay, they're gonna say "damn" in a PG movie now because that's a thing. It's just it's the rating system for video games, I think, is just probably still one of the best, and I really wish that parents would use that more often. It's very important. Just do your kids a favor and just pay attention to what they're doing, please.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely up to the parents to regulate things like that. You won't ever hear me arguing against that sort of thing.
Yeah. So just kind of wrapping up everything that we've kind of talked about and everything that we've kind of gone over. Like in terms of DLC, because you mentioned that you didn't have any kind of gripes against DLC, and I like DLC if it's reasonable.
If it's reasonable for the value. But
Yeah.
when you have things like the season passes where they expect you to pay money sight unseen for an indeterminate amount of content, which they have done every time for the past several years, these games like Battlefield and all of those, where they
Right.
literally just leave a placeholder where the content is and expect you to pay $60, $80 or $100 or something like that. It's ridiculous. But where they give full disclosure, where they give full disclosure, and amount of playable content versus dollar value, that of course is going to be a subjective term. But the more information you have in regards to that, the better decision you can make about whether or not it's actually worthwhile.
Yeah.
And that's something that they definitely don't want you to do. And that's why I'm usually so dead set against it. Same with pre-orders, is they very much want every single time they try and push a pre-order bonus on you, or a season pass bonus or something like that, or augment your pre-order. They're attempting to take control away from the consumers
Right.
and keep it in their own hands.
Now, like in terms of pre-order bonuses or that kind of stuff, my personal opinion is with like MMOs and stuff, I think that's okay because it's an MMO. You're going to be playing it for X amount of time. Do you have any, I guess, objections towards that kind of viewpoint where certain genres of games it's kind of okay to do pre-order bonuses because X reason?
Well, I would say no, simply for the simple fact that the more pre-orders they see, the more emboldened they will be to see what they can get away with pre-orders.
Right.
So
That's fair.
pre-ordering, whenever pre-ordering can be avoided, it should be.
Okay. I mean, no, I mean,
To me, the
yeah.
only real instance there is indeed that concept of, well, I do have the money now, but I might not have the money later.
Right.
And then it's like, well, then you got to do you, man. You always take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
And, if you got the money to spare now and you're not sure if you will when it comes out and you're going to buy it anyways, then by all means, make sure that you get it when it comes out at launch, because that's a lot better than sitting around for a month agonizing over not being able to play this game that you really wanted to play.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've pre-ordered a couple games and then like a day before realized this is probably a really bad decision. I'm going to not do this. But I mean, do you pre-order games at all, or are you just pretty much dead set on not pre-ordering?
There have been multiple instances in the past 8 months or so where I pre-ordered the previous day, but that was specifically for games that I was going to be reviewing that I did not get review code for. And, it's a 20 gigabyte download, so I needed to be able to make sure
Right.
that I had it downloaded, which a lot of people will make that excuse as well. But they treat that as a pre-order,
Yeah, unfortunately.
though it's, which it's not. I'm not purchasing it for the bonuses or anything like that.
Yeah,
But
it's
the
just
problem
prep
is,
time.
it
Right.
still counts towards that. It still sets the precedent,
It
which I
does, yeah.
really hate, and I do try to avoid it. But
Right.
it's especially in this industry where trying to get out reviews in a timely fashion is critical.
Oh, it really
And
is.
I have Dawn of War 3 and Prey that I'm both playing right now that are large releases that the vast majority of YouTube channels out there already have their reviews out. I'm like, well, I'm 4 hours into Prey, and
Well, I mean,
yeah.
but you're more of a first impression style anyway, so you don't need to beat the game to give your first impressions.
True, but the further you can make it through a game, the more accurate
Right.
the representation of it is going to be. I mean, there were take Batman Arkham Knight for example. The first 2 hours for 90+% of the people out there on PC, it ran fine. It wasn't until after you got past that 2 hour mark, which was shady as hell, that things actually started breaking and breaking very badly. For most people, it wasn't until after the 4 hour plus mark.
Oh my gosh, that is shady. Jeez. Ah, God bless AAA game developers. They're so smart. They're so smart and shady. Well, sir, is there anything, obviously, plug your YouTube channel, plug your Twitter, all that fun jazz. Where can we find you at?
You can find me at youtube.com/SidAlpha, where I do everything that I've just talked about. I'm actually going to be releasing a very late video today discussing the Atlas Games issue with Persona 5. They released an update about 2 weeks ago that I never got around to talking about, and I did a rant video on that previously, so I felt I owed it to everyone. So keep your eyes open for that. And if you want to stay up to date on when new videos will be coming out, you can always follow me on Twitter or Facebook, Reddit, Vote, Veeam, basically anywhere in the world online. You stick a /SidAlpha at the end of it, you'll probably find me. I even have a new website that I'm actually working on. So you go to SidAlpha.com, you find a nice little placeholder that I created there, which should be interesting because I've never designed a website before. So this is going to be a lot of fun for me.
Are you using like Squarespace or?
No. This is all. I do have a WordPress template that I'm using to help me out, but it's all in cPanel. It's all Apache web host. So, it's I'm letting my IT side show through there.
That's all right.
And
That's all right.
I'm not using one of those cheap scapegoat websites that, those work fantastically well, and they're great for people that don't know how to design websites like me. Well, I have no idea how to design a website, but I'm trying to learn actively.
Yeah.
So
they're
that's
also
why I'm going through it the
overpriced.
hard
So
way.
that's another reason not to use them.
They are. Plus, the web host servers that I'm on, they're actually my jobs servers,
Oh, there you
so
go.
I don't have to pay for them.
Nice. There you go. That's awesome. Well, Mr. SidAlpha, I do appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, and I look forward to your content. As always, make sure to check him out on his respective channels and social medias. That'll all be in the description below. And you guys know where to find me. That's always there as well. So without further ado, have a good afternoon, morning, and or evening, and we'll see you guys next time.